Well, good afternoon, Greg.
It's good to see you again, Keith. It's been a
You think
while.
so? Well,
We,
we had 2 weeks where we did Thursdays, and then we skipped the whole week.
right, right. We took the
Okay,
Thanksgiving week off
right.
to
And
enjoy some turkey and football, family.
yes, yes, I'm trying to think if there was any what foot. There was some good football games,
There was,
good
yeah,
games.
yeah,
Yeah, that went right to the end. Of course, I
yeah.
don't remember which ones those were, but
Well, Kansas City and Las Vegas went right down to the wire.
that was good.
The Bears and the Lions went down to the
The
last
Bears and the
last
Lions, I
play.
was surprised because the Lions were up the whole game. So
Right.
um so Darryl must have been happy. And but enough of talking football. This is biz talk.
Exactly.
Although football is biz talk.
Well, we do talk a lot of sports in business, but let's get to the subject at hand.
Yes. Subject for today is negotiation. How do we negotiate in life? In all the many
Yes,
areas.
the psychology of negotiation, right?
Yes. There is
Yeah.
definitely a psychology. Um, I don't think people think of it that way unless they have a natural inclination when it comes to sales. You
Right.
know, there's, I call it like you and I have talked about the third eye.
Yeah.
It's like there are things you see when you're really good at selling,
Right.
and it's a part of, the read and react of sales,
Yeah.
and how to really understand what the potential person you're negotiating with wants. What are they looking for?
I think this topic's so important, Keith, because we do it all the time in business, in our personal lives. I think hardly a day goes by where we're not negotiating something. It
Yeah,
could be relatively trivial, but I think in business, we might be negotiating contracts, we might be negotiating due dates, scope of work, um, raises, um, price increases, sales contracts. So it's important. I'm glad you brought this forward as a topic today, and I think as business owners, we need to be aware of this topic and really focused on it.
before we even talk in depth about the negotiating process, one of the things I said to you earlier was that you can't get good at something that you don't do all the time.
Right.
It's like I've played golf. It's quite funny. I have to laugh because I'm not a good golfer. Now, I'm not a terrible athlete. I was always, okay. I was good at tennis. Tennis was my sport.
Mhm.
Uh, but, I could never, really get better. Forget about getting good, but get better at golf unless I consistently played and
Right.
possibly take some lessons as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Being coached, right?
Right.
That's one way
It's,
to get better.
yeah, that word, the thing that you and I live by now, which is our careers, is like, you know, and that's a whole different negotiation because we're trying to get a client to hire us.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
why are they hiring us? Why do they want to? Why will they agree to our rate?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
where do you start? Now, a lot of people, they take the no or the pushback and they're just done.
Right.
That's it. Okay, they don't ask questions. They don't wonder why. But it's much more than that. They didn't really do their homework.
You've often said that the negotiation starts when they say no.
That's
And
exactly
that's
right.
really true because I think the one thing I find about negotiation is it's really important to understand the other party's perspective. What do they want to get out of it? What's their goal? And I think if you can think in terms of from their perspective, it helps a lot get to a, to a win-win. We all talk about getting to a win-win, because we've all been in situations where it's a win-lose, and one party really feels not good about the what's just transpired.
Well, so, and again, it depends, are you selling a need or a want? You know, I
Mhm.
want a Mercedes, but I can't afford it. So why am
Right.
I walking into a Mercedes dealership? Okay. Well, I just want to look around, you know. Now, the one thing that a lot of salespeople do is they'll look at somebody and they'll decide, nah, this person's not buying. They've preconceived the outcome.
Yeah.
You know, they've decided that this person, you know, they're not dressed, you know, they don't look, you know, like they make a lot of money, you know, they're wearing clothes, you know, maybe they just came from work and they you know they're a mechanic. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are mechanics and there are mechanics. Well, maybe you own a shop that does, you know, expensive cars. So all high-end work you're doing. So you're making a lot of money, but he comes in, he's got grease all over him, and the salesperson looks at him and goes, "Oh, this is going to be a waste of my time."
Well, and I think back in the day when, again, many years ago, there used to be sort of this business dress code, right? So you could draw some conclusions, I think, from the way people were dressed. But today, with the casual business environment, you can't tell. I think you have trouble telling a mechanic from a lawyer. And I don't think you're right. I don't think you should make assumptions around somebody's background, or like you just said, if somebody walks in and right away I say, oh, well, this person's not going to buy, what's the message I'm sending to myself, right? I'm going to be in a completely different frame of mind than if that person walks in and I say, hey, this person's going to buy today.
A lot of times, the first, you know, interaction you have with somebody makes the difference between whether they're going to buy today or not buy at all or go
Mhm.
elsewhere.
Mhm.
You know, that's the other thing is that, you know, that first greeting, and you've heard me talk about this ad nauseum, is like critical, you know, smiling, nice greeting, getting to know somebody.
Right.
Stop thinking that you're going to sell this person right away. It's what
Yeah.
you do before that, you know, that determines the success, you
Yeah.
know, whether
Yeah.
they're willing to buy.
I think we also have to consider what is it we're selling. Okay.
Yeah.
In your case, in my case, where we're selling business coaching services, we know that our first conversation is typically just to get to know each other, break the ice, see if we're a fit, see how we align in terms of our values, and get that next meeting set up, right? Because it tends to be more of a process as opposed
Right.
to a transaction.
Right. It's generally a high ticket sale from the perspective of the
Yeah.
person who's buying.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a widget that's on the shelf where you say, yeah, take one of these, I'll take one of those. And
Yeah.
you know, so it is a big decision, but it's a big decision, you know, in a number of ways, because if I'm spending X amount of money, what am I looking for in return?
Mhm.
You know, how am I measuring that return? So in a coaching scenario, if I was hiring a coach, I want to see that, one, they show that they have the experience, the knowledge, the background, you know, to guide me accordingly in what my
Mhm.
needs are. And I want to see how they go about determining what my needs are. Again, this comes down to questions, you know.
I just gonna say, I think the negotiation process is just ripe for key questions to be asked, because you learn so much when you can get a prospective client to open up about what's really important to them.
Yeah, I mean, think of, you know, a salesperson who goes into coaching, and the first thing he does in his initial consultation is, before we get started, I just want to let you know, this is, we charge at least, 3,000 a month. So I just want to make sure that this is in your ballpark before we get into anything. And there are people that actually do that. They want to remove, that money aspect of it right from the start. Now, I'm not going to say that person is going to fail all the time. Depending upon how they present that, because there's a way to present it, that same thing without it sounding so condescending.
Right.
Like, I want to make sure you can afford it. Again, then it comes down to asking questions. Before we get started, Greg, I want to understand what made you reach out.
Right.
Okay, what made you feel that a coach could be helpful to you? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a great question and a great opening. Yeah.
Right. It's basically saying, look, if you do not understand the value that I bring, okay, and we can come to some, meeting of the minds of where this is going to work for you, then I certainly don't want you to make a commitment to something that you have doubts about. So let's try to remove the doubts. Okay. And so, Greg, tell me, and I'm of course I'm role playing here. I'm saying, tell me what's happening in your business right now that made you feel like, I can't figure this out myself.
Yeah.
You obviously have an answer.
And I think whether it's, coaching services or a product that's being sold, that's a great question to ask, because it automatically gets that, as long as that individual is willing to open up, it gets you thinking about, okay, how am I going to solve this person's problem? How am I going to meet their needs? Right? How am I going to provide them the satisfaction that they're looking for? So it starts you thinking about, what do I have? Because maybe you've got multiple products or multiple services. If you have more than one of something to sell, right? Let's say it's an automobile. Is this person looking for a Ford Escort, or are they looking for a Lincoln Navigator? Right? Both of those might be on my floor, on my sales floor, but they're not the customer that walks in isn't going to be interested in, he might be interested in one, but probably not both.
So that's a very good analogy. And the first thing that would go through my mind is, before I even ask them what they're looking for, one, introduce myself, obviously a pleasant greeting. What are you driving right now? What kind of car? Oh, I'm driving a Mercedes, or I'm driving a BMW. Well, and then I want to know, well, is there a reason that you're not staying with one of those brands, and you're thinking about a Ford? Now, you may find out, well, honestly, I needed a bigger car. I'm not getting away from Mercedes. I need a second car for my wife. So these questions give you answers. The person might say to you, well, to be honest with you, with inflation being what it is, and I have a new job and I'm not making as much money, so I can't. People, if you're nice and friendly, they'll tell you more than you think they'll tell you.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
right. So then you could get into all the questions. Do you have a budget? Is there, obviously most people don't pay cash for a car. Are you leasing or are you buying? Do you have a monthly number that's in your budget? Okay. So right away, once they tell you that, you know where to go.
Right.
Okay.
Now, some clients aren't going to want to tell you.
No doubt. And some of them
you have to understand, you may ask a question and you may not get the answer, or you may not get the right answer.
And both of them are okay.
Yeah.
Because if you're good at selling, you will get somewhere. So again, now we get into different questions about, well, what are you looking for in a car? Do you need the room for at least 5 people? Do you need a bigger trunk? So now you get into the different types of cars or trucks that could provide the things that you need as a family. Go ahead. I think you wanted to make.
You know, Keith, I think as you're asking those questions though as well, it's really important to watch for the nonverbal signs that most people will give off, right? Because as we just said, a lot of times they're not maybe going to want to disclose all of the information that we would like to have.
Mhm.
But I think if you can watch how a person reacts and not just what they say, but how they say it, you might pick up on some things. Um, you know, for instance, in that situation with the vehicle, you know, perhaps you ask a question about, you know, they're downsizing, and they may not want to tell you why they're downsizing, or they may not want to tell you the real reason they're downsizing, right?
Absolutely. And the thing is that it shouldn't matter. What you're doing is you're searching for answers.
Right.
The answer may be like totally straightforward, like, hey, I'm not making as much as I made when I got my Mercedes, and now I need, or no, it's like I need a second car. Okay, different story.
Right.
Or I need a bigger car. I looked at the SUVs at Mercedes, and I looked at the SUVs, at other dealers. And the truth of the matter is, Mercedes is the price is ridiculous. It's just I'm not, as a second car, I'm not spending $1,000 a month. Just not doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
These are conversations that when you are good at your initial presentation, you're being friendly, you're learning about, you're reading the customer with the nonverbal and the verbal.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not all verbal, as you just said, it's the nonverbal that you're looking at.
I think the other thing is, sometimes we're asking real direct questions, but sometimes we can ask more indirect questions. For instance, that customer walks into the car dealership and we might ask them, hey, what's your budget for a vehicle? And they may or may not want to tell us. But if we ask them questions maybe about who they are or what's going on in their life, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself, or, are you the only person making this purchase, or do you have a spouse that's going to be influencing this decision? Maybe a person comes in, that Mercedes driver comes in and says, well, I got married about a year ago and now we have a child on the way. Okay, I can understand now why somebody might say, it's not, I'm not at the point in my life anymore where that Mercedes is what I need. I need something more practical.
That's exactly right. So again, you're learning, asking questions, and you're asking questions that they're not so intrusive. You're not saying, hey, what's the matter? You lost your job. It's like, no, you're asking questions. You're trying to get to know them, trying to understand, what made them walk in today. Why are they a Ford dealer? Have you ever had a Ford before? I want to get as much information when I'm speaking to somebody, so that I get a sense of the direction. You don't want to undersell, you don't want to oversell. You want to make sure that the person you're selling knows that you have their best interests at heart.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned it briefly, a few minutes ago, but I think it's really important to start to build that rapport with a person, because you've got to develop some sense of trust. Whether they're buying something that's very transactional or whether they're buying something that's more relationship focused, you really got to develop that trust, develop that relationship, so they are willing to open up a little bit more. Because I think initially most people tend to want to play it pretty close to the vest, right? They don't want to show all their cards, so to speak. And again, depending on what the situation is, we know, like we've all bought cars before, right? We know when we walk into a dealership, we've all, the hair on the back of our neck goes up, right? Because we know what the experience is going to be like, because we've all been through it before. Right? So we're not going to be probably real willing to share direct information, but a good salesperson is going to start asking the right questions to gain more information.
Yeah, and a lot of times the customer will try to, knock you off your heels, basically, or put you on your heels in terms of, nah, I don't want to talk to anybody right now. I'm here, I'm looking around, don't bother me.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a certain type of persona. That's usually intentional. Okay,
Right.
they want to put you on the defensive. They want to choose when they want to talk to somebody.
Right.
Okay, they don't want to be greeted.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't want to be led around
Yeah,
the
they
showroom
just
floor, right?
look. They're, so that again. So in your mind, as the person who's selling, you got to say, okay, is this truly someone who is, just at the earliest stages of looking around, or have they been to 5 other deals? They want to make a decision, and they want to see how people treat them.
Right. Right.
Okay, because
Yeah.
really, at the end of the day, you could buy the same car in 5 different dealers. So it's like,
Right.
maybe I'll save a few bucks here and there, but what's the service like?
Keith, we talked a little bit about a few minutes ago about being careful about assumptions. I think the one assumption we should make is that the person has done some research online about this purchase,
Mhm.
if it's a significant purchase, because more than likely they have gone online and they have done some homework. And I think that's a real change over the last 10, 20 years, where consumers are so much more educated about what it is they're buying, that I think as somebody in a sales role, we have to know that they may not know all the minute details, but they've done enough homework to have some preconceived notions when they're looking to buy,
Mhm.
or they've had a previous experience, good or bad, that's going to influence them as well.
Yeah. So look, I think you have to, I call it reading the room, but also reading the person. They come in, always smile, nice greeting. How can I help you today? And then if they say, I'm just looking, okay, okay. Well, I'll be over here if you need anything, if you have any questions, and you could make small conversations, see what, and then I would be looking, I'd be watching, I'd be seeing, what cars are they looking at,
Yeah.
they only looked at, one, model, or they're looking at every model, you start to get a sense about the person and what their thought process is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really, really astute on the part of a professional salesperson, because you can gain a lot of nonverbal information by watching what they're doing. How are how are they picking things up, right? Are they really, are they, let's say they're in a hardware store, right? Are they just walking around, or are they like checking up underneath the lawnmower to see what kind of blade is on there?
Some
You
people
learn
just
a
look
lot.
at fill time, they just happen to, let's say the dealership is in like a shopping center with a lot of stores, and they're out on the pad and whatever, and they had time to kill,
Mhm.
Maybe they had and they place a food order for pickup, and they're waiting, and they say, you know what, let me go into the Ford dealership. Not ready yet, but I may be looking for another car in 6 months. And that
Right.
person is truly just looking. But
Mhm.
again, so this comes down to a couple of things. There's the psychology of the sale. How do you understand the persona of the buyer? Because
Right.
each buyer has their own persona. Some are gregarious, some are outright mean, some are heavy negotiators, and they'll tell you right up front, listen, I've been to 4 dealers, okay, unless you're going to give me the best price, I'm out of here.
Right.
I say,
Right.
okay, that's interesting. So besides the best price, what else are you looking for in a car? I don't care, I just want the best price. Oh, so it's about the price, it's not about the car. Okay. So let's talk price. What are you looking for in a price?
Mhm.
Okay, you've obviously been to 4 other dealers, so let's talk about that. Okay, which car were you looking at? Do you want me to give you my best price right now? Yeah, give me your best price right now. I want to know the best price.
Well, Keith, I think what's interesting in this example is best price the total cost of the vehicle? Is best price the monthly payment? Is best price the lowest down payment? Is best price the total cost of ownership? So I think from a negotiation standpoint, there's ways to make sure that, again, I think this win-win philosophy is really important, because if people feel like they've sort of been scabbed, like like somebody's taking advantage of them, in this day and age, they might walk out of that dealership in this example and say, oh boy, I just got hosed. I really did something stupid. Well, they're not going to go through with the purchase, right? They'll return the vehicle. Nowadays, I think most states allow you to return a vehicle within 3 days. So again, you want to make sure that they feel like they're coming away with a win, right? Obviously, you want to win.
That's such a good point. And at least I'm going to tell you why I feel it's a good point, and you may agree with it or add something to it. What happens when someone says they want to get the best price? Well, what goes into price?
Right.
Okay, now we know cars, they have all kinds of service packages.
Right.
Okay. So is it a service package? Well, it's $4.99 a month. Does that include service? Now you're in the negotiating stage right now.
Yes.
Yeah, they threw in service. Okay, so let's really compare apples to apples. Did they give you something in writing? Okay, which showed all the different features that you get. Now say, no, I didn't have anything in writing. So now again, I'm learning about this person.
And I think what's really important, Keith, is to understand that just about everything is negotiable. Even if take this dealership, a lot of dealerships now say, here's our rock bottom pricing. You can still negotiate things like service contracts or what options are going to be included.
Upgrades, things like that.
I think you can negotiate at a restaurant. Now, maybe not a fast food restaurant, but at a sit-down restaurant, maybe you walk in with a group of 8 and you say, hey, would you guys be willing to throw in a couple of free appetizers?
Yeah, or a bottle of wine or something.
Yeah.
Listen, especially if it's a place you go to on a regular basis.
Right.
So look, you're right. Everything is negotiable if you want to negotiate. Okay, some people can't help themselves. They have to.
Some people don't.
Everything.
Right.
It's in their DNA. They're not happy unless they're negotiating.
Right.
So, I love the sales process. I love it because first of all, it's built into my DNA, and I enjoy going through and getting an understanding of the client. I'm going to give you a real world example. My current client, which you know about, he's not somebody who likes to spend money. He's living off his past experiences. Well, the last person told me that they were going to do this too. I wound up wasting a lot of money. Now, that may be true. Okay. But again, you have to be accountable yourself. Well, what did you expect? Were your expectations not met because of something that was promised? Or did you have preconceived notions without communicating?
Right.
So, you're learning. Again, I have somebody who wants to pay me much less than I deserve, at least that I believe I deserve, and wants me to prove myself, okay, based on something that happened. He has a fear of making a commitment and having that not work out again, wasting money. So I get.
Keith, I've been in situations now with clients where I've been talking about, because you're right, there's a hesitation about, well, what am I going to get for this? And so I'll tell them, well, look, what if we did this? What if, your first payment wasn't due at the beginning of the month, but it's due at the end of the month. So you're going to get 4 sessions to figure, if we meet once a week, you're going to get 4 sessions to see what this is like, right? And then, I'm still going to ask for payment, obviously, but trying to lower the risk and take away some of those barriers for somebody to say no, I think is definitely a form of negotiation, right?
No doubt about it. People in general have life experience with almost everything. Now, they may not have life experience with hiring a coach, which brings a whole new fear. It's like, oh, I'm hiring a coach. What if it doesn't work? I'll spend all that money, and it's like, I'm in the same place. The ball hasn't moved. I'm still, my operations department is still a mess. My sales guy is not making sales, and it's like, so
that's where you go ahead.
The trust factor is what you need to build from the inception. And that comes with letting them learn about you. Okay, because you are selling you. I've said this to you, and even when I coach in the world of sales, you're not selling coaching per se, even though you're selling Gregg Johnson. It's like, I need to know about Gregg Johnson. What makes you a coach? What makes you a good coach? Well, we've been doing this for 30 years, okay, and you could talk about that and the roles that you've played and the successes that you've had. So you wanted to make a point, so go ahead.
Yeah, just the one thing there that I think kind of caught my ear was, when we're in this negotiation process of making sure that we're getting to this win-win, but understanding sort of what's, again, going back to what's really driving that individual's, what outcome is it that they want? And how can I, if they've got some of these things that they're concerned about, like you said, what about the guy who says, well, my operations area is a mess, and I'm concerned that even if I hire you, you're not going to fix it. Well, we can negotiate that, right? We can negotiate results, right? We can negotiate goals. We can negotiate measurements, right? So if he says, well, hey, I want to get my quality up to 98%, we can say, okay, why don't we negotiate a contract that says you pay me X, and I'm going to help you get to, this quality marker within 3 or 6 or 12 months, whatever the time frame is. So I think that's, again, where negotiation can really play a role in understanding what the outcome is that your client wants.
There's a tipping point in every sales interaction, where they go from undecided to decided. Now that decision may be, I'm out of here. I'm not interested. I don't like what you said. Well, the decision could be, let's do this. Okay. Invariably, it's a combination of things, but I would say that what weighs very heavy is they feel good about you. They go, you know something? I like what you said. I believe you're going to produce what you're telling me. And you've given me some ways that I can ensure that if I'm not happy, that I'm not stuck. One of the things
there's an out.
Right. One of the things you and I experienced with the marketing company that we hired is a perfect example.
Yeah.
We were sold on something that we were told this is what they do. They did say that they had not gotten appointments for coaches, but didn't think it would be a problem. I mean, they had a pretty good process of walking us through what they do.
Yeah.
The problem is that when they saw that we were unhappy, they didn't jump all over it and say, whatever we got to do, we're going to make this happen. All they cared about was taking your money. Okay. That's not how you win. I rather give
Right.
people back their money and go, you know what? You're unhappy. I did not solve your problem.
Right.
Okay, here's a refund.
Yeah.
That's painful.
Yeah. And
But
again, I think, there's sort of you're talking about this psychology of negotiation, and I think there's sometimes I want to win now in the short term, right? So I may negotiate in a way that, yeah, I'm gonna win, but in the long run, I'm gonna lose. Right? Because this client's
yes,
gonna walk out disappointed, unhappy. They're not gonna have good things to say about me. So I might have won the battle, but I'm gonna lose the war because that's not a recipe for long-term success.
100%, 100%. And you never win by thinking you're getting over on a customer. You never
Right.
can get over. They're
Right.
getting over on you because they can hurt you a lot more. Okay.
In this day and age, bad news can travel fast.
Oh
So,
yeah, very, very quickly.
yeah,
And the person we're talking about, if we do not get satisfaction, amongst the other things we could do, we could, listen, poor rating on Google, okay, is not, people look at that stuff,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
you know.
We just talked,
wouldn't
we
want
just,
that.
we just talked a few minutes ago, right? About consumers, buyers are doing their research ahead of time. You may not even get a meeting with somebody if there's bad reviews out there, because they're not going to call you, right? If there's a bunch of competitors with 4s and 5s and you've got a rating of 2.8, you might not even make the cut just based on the Google reviews.
Yeah,
You never even get up the bat.
nope.
Yeah, so I really like the way that ties into negotiation and customer satisfaction, and the two are they really do align well with each other.
So another thing that I believe is really important is that, education, information, knowledge, I'm going to use the term is sexy to a buyer. Okay. And because it attracts people that you're looking to give something away.
Yeah.
I would say something like this. And this is all psychological. I say, Greg, I believe you need a coach. Okay. You're not sure. So before you even engage with me, here's what I want to do. We're going to talk next week. I'm going to give you an hour, no charge. I'm going to spend time talking about, based on the information that you've given me, on where I believe your problems are, okay, and what needs to be done to solve them. And of course, you could go to somebody else and hire somebody else. That's fine. I have no problem with that. I'm confident that I can help you, but I need you to be confident that I can help you.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to dedicate time to you. And maybe it'll be more than an hour. Maybe we have to have another meeting.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you are a reflection on me. If I don't satisfy you and I don't get results, how are you ever going to refer somebody to me?
Right.
Your
Right.
happiness is more important than the money you're going to pay me, because if you do better because of what I did, I'm going to get 10 people from you.
Right. And if
Now,
we
how do
never
you
worked,
feel? What I just said to you is like, how could you not feel good about that?
yeah, exactly.
It's like,
Right.
so now there's the psychology of sales. It's like, I'm going to give you something that's valuable, which is my time, to get you to the point where you say, I'm ready to engage.
I like it. Yes. Well said.
I expect you to use that.
How do you know I already haven't?
Can I tell you something? I know you do. I know we've spent so much time together in the last year between, my sales training and us doing the podcast.
Right.
You,
Right.
you can't help but not learn. I mean, these things do stick with you. And you have, like I said, beginning of our, talking today, is like, the more you do things, the better you get at it. Okay. And it's really, people want to buy from people who know what they're talking about.
When negotiation is like any other skill, right? And the more we practice it, the better we get. So we've talked before about practicing sales, because I've been in your sales training. We've talked about practicing coaching. We've talked about practicing, how we interact with when we're doing lead generation. All of those are skills that the more we do them, the better we get at them.
Right.
And you said it right up front at the beginning. If there's things we're not good at, or we don't like, then we don't do them, and we don't get better at them. You're not going to get better at golf by playing tennis, right?
And a lot of times when people have an area of their business that's not performing well, they've totally ignored it so that they don't know what to do.
Right. Right. They don't want to deal with it, right?
Right. So really what it comes down to is that, if I was trying to engage with you in your business, I would say something to the effect, part of what you're going to get from me is knowledge that you can use, so you will recognize these problems sooner going forward.
Right.
Instead of being like, you may call me again for a different area of your business, or you need something, things are okay, but I could use like, a refreshing, or something's missing again,
Well, Keith, I've been in a lot of situations where I feel like business owners they don't know how to solve the problem, so they don't deal with it.
Oh.
It's uncomfortable. They don't like doing it. It causes conflict. But like, let's say it's a sales growth situation, which you've dealt with a lot. They don't know they're not salespeople by trade. They don't know how to grow the business. They don't even know if their sales manager is doing a good job or a bad job. They don't know why they're not growing, but it's not something that they want to deal with. I mean, they want to grow their business, but they don't want to do the hard work to really understand what the issues are. So they go and spend their time in operations because that's where they're most comfortable, and thereby really ignoring what's really important for the business. And again, from a negotiation standpoint, as a business owner, like there's some negotiation there with ourselves saying, hey, I may not be comfortable or like doing this, but it's what's got to be done for the business. So I gotta dig in. And if I'm not comfortable digging in, who do I have that can help me dig in? Again, maybe it's somebody else within the organization. Maybe it is a coach. So, yeah.
What it all comes down to, I mean, in a coaching scenario, is if something's not working in your business, it's already costing you money.
Right.
So this is not a function of, do I need help? You need help. Is it going to be somebody you hire internally, or do you want somebody who's external that brings a fresh eye to the scenario and can guide you accordingly? An internal person, you're making a longer term commitment, so it's a much greater expense. You still might need that down the road, but right now it's like you need to plug the hole. The water's coming out.
Yeah.
So,
And we've talked about coaching before as well as being kind of a, sometimes business owners look at it as a big expense. But think about, like you just said, what if I was hiring a full-time person to help me grow my business? That's going to be a much bigger expense than a coach who I can, who's not going to be here for the long term. They're not going to be part of my organization forever. They're going to help me help myself. Right? A good coach is going to make sure that you don't become reliant on the coach. You become reliant on yourself.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yep.
Anyway, so this was this is my, like, one of my favorite subjects that
Yeah. I feel like we could go on for another hour.
Yeah, we can, and one of the things that's good, as seasoned as I am in sales, it's good for me to talk about it because it
Yeah.
refreshes my knowledge base. Because you say you don't use it, you lose it. So one, it's like when I hear you talk about finance and operations, it's a weakness of mine. It's not my strength. So I'm able to learn when our topics cover those areas and vice versa. So that's why we enjoy this.
Well, but I think another thing about both of us is we're both open to learning. I know I don't know everything, and you don't know everything. So, like you just said, even though you're a seasoned salesperson, you're always listening and you're always trying to find out more and you're always trying to learn. So I think that's a really valuable trait.
Absolutely. All right, my friends. So another week has gone by. It's great to have you back. It's great to be back. And
we'll do it again next time.
Until next week, right? All right. Thanks, Greg.
Good topic, Keith. Thanks.
Thanks.